Hello everyone. We are at the Fort Heritage Precinct, which is an open-air museum located on the North Saskatchewan River in the town of Fort Saskatchewan, Alberta. While there, we visited mainly the historical village and the 1875 Northwest Mounted Police Fort, representing Fort Saskatchewan's early history. It should be noted that to walk into the buildings of the village and to access the fort, you must book a guided tour. Starting at the village, we were first shown the courthouse, which was constructed in 1909 and used to, I believe, 1959. During its time, the courthouse heard both criminal proceedings and local disputes within the district. For the village portion of the museum, all the buildings are original, and the courthouse, as far as I can understand, is still in its original location and never was moved.
A telephone switchboard here, and then an old cash register. Also would have been kind of functional at the time of this courthouse being used.
We were then off to a school that represented life as a student in the early 1900s. I will take this opportunity to thank the tour guides who allowed us to film them. No matter how much research you do, the interpreters still know much more detail than you do, and it really helped in making this video, so thank you very much. As you can see here, this is a one-room schoolhouse. Two-room schoolhouses weren't created until the 1920s for this part of Canada. An early log home from 1907.
Essentially, this room here was not accessible to the children. They weren't allowed to go into this room here. They were allowed to go into the kitchen, which makes the layout of this house a little bit complicated because the upstairs is right there into the kitchen. So you weren't allowed to cross through this room here.
They need a little, almost like a cradle corral.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
This home was built in, I believe, 1914, but has been restored to look as it was in the 1920s. The home, which was owned by a doctor, has a bit of a unique history. They were not able to recreate the original basement, however, which had a heated garage for Dr. Henry's car. This allowed him to be able to start the car and go to emergencies during the winter months. For me personally, this is the first time I've ever heard of anybody making a car garage in the basement of a house, which was heated by, as I understand, a coal-fired furnace.
The plumbing over there, we don't have a sink tap, but the plumbing was added on as the later addition in the 1920s when he did renovations and decided that having plumbing in your house was probably a good idea. So he added that as well. This space is considered a very, very large kitchen for the time. I'm trying to what would have been in here in the kitchen. And most of those actually have their original spices in them, which is pretty neat. You have a short and then a long. And then basically ringing your friend would have been either short, long, or long, short, or something like that. It's really cool.
So after going through the village, we got a new interpreter and went to see the 1875 Northwest Mounted Police Fort. It was the first fort in the region and the second in Alberta to be constructed, becoming a key northern police garrison.
So it's been restored, I assume.
Rebuilt.
Rebuilt.
So, yeah, the fort stood as mostly how it looks in our recreation from 1875 to 1885.
These names are all the original horse names, or?
To our knowledge, yeah. Old Buck was the favorite horse of our bugler, Fred Bagley. We don't have as creative names as the men, though. We get lots of Cinnamon and Bucky. Well, I always say you gotta remember these were men between 18 to 40 were the cutoff ages, and most of the men here were under the age of 25, aside from the officers. So I would say, like, think frat house, but with discipline.
It should be mentioned that there are no buildings of the original fort that survive today, so this part of the museum is all recreated. The fort's layout had been changed several times during its history, but this is how the fort looked after being first built in 1875.
When did the fort get disbanded?
Get disbanded?
Decommissioned, I guess.
Decommissioned about 1913. The lift, but each of them represents one of the men that first founded the fort here.
Okay, cool.
So 20 total, 17 enlisted men and 3 officers.
So what would they do here? What kind of patrols or what kind of prosecutions?
At first it was mostly establishing relationships. The area of what we think of the prairie provinces and the territories was only newly under Canadian control. So it was a very big deal just to have them here to show that Canada is going to be in charge of the well-being of the people, of the laws are going to be Canadian laws that are going to be followed. And then after that you start seeing them moving towards border control. They had a huge issue with the whiskey trade coming out of the United States.
Right.
So there was a big crackdown on alcohol sales and distribution, as well as just generally cleaning up the slightly wild, wild west we had. And then usually the corporals, sergeants, and sometimes the sergeant major would be assigned to here. They had to elect their cook, so somebody better learn to cook pretty quickly, because it was just going to be whoever was chosen.
The youngest.
They actually picked the oldest, from what we could tell.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
Which we figure is probably smart, because he was about 26, his name was Sam Tabor. He would have likely been living a bachelor lifestyle and cooking for himself, whereas all the 18, 19-year-olds would have had moms home cooking when they left.
If you're interested in what the daily rations were for the Northwest Mounted Police, here's a recreated list. They did go out to hunt and fish to keep up their supplies as well.
We're, to our knowledge, the only fort that ever had this kitchen-jail combination. Bunk bed solutions in case they had extra people. The bunkhouse here. And they ate here, they slept here, they bathed here, their recreation was in here for the most part. So this room would have housed 17 men. There would have been one person on guard in the jail if there were prisoners. All paid a little extra, so with that money they actually hired 2 girls to come in. One cooked and one did a little bit of cleaning for them. So lap of luxury, and then we've got it set up. So all of our officers, commissioned or non-commissioned, are invited to dinner.
Nice.
So very elaborate setup.
Would be the girls, would they be Métis? Or?
Yes, they were Métis. They were just local girls. So likely their father, their brother was doing translator work or guide work for the Northwest Mounted Police.
Right.
They had a kind of unofficial rank of acting constable. So we know there was a man, Washington Brazeau. He was a Métis man from the area, and he was given the status of acting constable so that they could actually take him as an official translator.
So I'm seeing sweetgrass in here. Would that be a normal thing in here?
We're not sure. The girls that worked here would have brought a lot of the Métis spirituality into the lives of the officers. At least one of the officers, Richard Steele, he did marry a Métis woman from the area. I think that was put up just to show that connection there. Yeah, so this was, we've got it set up, so this is Sub-Inspector Gagnon and then Sergeant Major Steele on this side. Okay. Sam Steele was about 24 when he joined, 26 by the time he was here, so a little bit young to be married even back then, particularly for a man who was just kind of up and coming in his military career.
I found this desk interesting among the items in the officers' quarters. It's a portable command desk that is foldable, and that includes the table and chairs that you see, so essentially it's a field desk.
And then Steele took land over here, and then Curran, Tabor, Robertson, and Burnett were all constables as well.
So that was the end of our tour of the Fort Precinct. All that was left was for us to finish up some filming. There was a lot that we could not cover due to time constraints, so I highly recommend that you come and check this place out if you're able to come. As always, thanks for coming over to the channel.